Yes, if we've opened our Google Cloud account and activated it. Friends, now we can move on to creating our Kubernetes cluster. Look, here we have the Create option, or it might be in the middle of the screen as well. It looks like this for me because I already have one. Let me make this a bit smaller. Now, we're going to click on the Create option here and set up a new cluster. Here, there's Autopilot, and there's also the Standard mode. Now, it might not show up like this for you. Guys, if you click like this, since I created a Kubernetes cluster before, it shows up here. But let's say when you click, it immediately starts setting something up. In other words, it opens Autopilot right away. In that case, here's what you need to do, guys. At the top right, it gives you the option to change for a standard setup. Let me check here. When I click Configure here, this screen should pop up in front of you, okay? If this screen comes up right away, look, it says Center Cluster here. I want you to switch to this. Alright, because we're going to configure this setup a little bit. From here, you switch to the standard cluster. Because I'm going to explain some important points to you here, guys. So, what's here? Let's talk about it. Here, you do the naming. For the cluster, I called it Microservice. That's the name I gave it, guys. Then here, look, it lets you choose which location to use. Please pay attention right now. This cluster costs $24 for 24 hours. Now, the basic logic of the structures you'll use on Google or any other cloud is like this. Guys, if you're going to spin up a computer or use a service, as long as that service is active, you'll be charged every hour. So, let's say we set this up and ran it for an hour. Our cost would be just that much, guys. Let's say you run it for 10 hours a week. 10 times 0.24. So, you'd pay $2.4. That's basically how it works. You'll need to make your selection here accordingly. So, what is this place? Here, guys. Google has tons of server farms all over the world. You pick one of those farms. For example, let's look at the locations that are close to us. So, what's here? Europe, for example. There's West 9A here, for instance. Now, do you see the price here? It went up from 24 to 26. The price increased. So, the prices in Europe are a bit more expensive, but since it's closer to us, the ping times will be lower. So, keeping that in mind, you can pick the locations closest to us, closest to Turkey, and do it that way. But if you say, ping time isn't that important to me, you can choose the servers in the US and pay a bit less. So there's about a $20 difference per month. If you're wondering how they calculate this, here's how it works. Guys, if you're spending 26 cents per hour here, they consider a month as 720 hours. By default, it's calculated as 720 times 0.26, just so you know. Now, after selecting this, down here you have the Kubernetes version that the node in Google Cloud, the Kubernetes node in the cluster, will use. It asks you to choose which one you want to use. You don't really need to make a lot of changes here. There's no problem with it. Now, from here, you move on to the default pool section. These parts, the configs here, are very important. Now look, here you can name your nodes. It's not very important. Give it any name you want. This part is important for us. Look, what it means by number of nodes is this, friends. Now, the structure of this Kubernetes cluster basically works like this, friends. Let's say this is a Kubernetes cluster. Alright. Google Kubernetes engine. Now, inside this, there are virtual machines. These virtual computers, these virtualized machines, are called nodes, friends. Node. You can create as many of these nodes as you want, horizontally. As many as you need. Now here. Let's say, for example, this has 4 CPUs. Let's say it has 32 gigabytes of RAM. You have a node like this. You can create as many of these as you want, but you have to pay for as many nodes as you create. So, when you come here and see an amount listed, that amount, friends, is for the number of nodes, meaning it's the price you'll pay for 3 nodes. When you reduce this to 1, the pricing adjusts accordingly. Look, it dropped to 15 cents per hour. It has a lower cost. Teacher, it didn't drop to a third. It won't drop to a third anyway. Guys, I mean, there are the basic Kubernetes configs and all that. Those already have a cost. So, right now, in this state, instead of using 3 of these, you're using just 1. So, teacher, where are the configs for this computer or node? So, where can we manage these things from? You can configure those, guys. But first, I want to tell you this. Let's say you set up something like this. You built a structure like this. Here, you have a single node and the system is running. Over time, the workload increased so much that this node could no longer handle it. You need to scale up. In other words, you need to add new ones. That's why there's something here called Enable Autoscaler. This is node autoscaling. Guys, what does that mean? It means to create new nodes as needed. In other words, add new virtual machines here. So you need to enable this and configure its settings. But we don't have that kind of need right now. After you set up these configs, there's a nodes section here. So you configure the node I mentioned here. Look, here are the types of nodes. They have certain types, and you can choose from here. You can select the node you need from here. Ours is usually high memory, guys. For example, a machine with 4 vCPUs, that is, 2 cores and 4 vCPUs and 32 gigabytes of RAM is more than enough for us. This is more than sufficient for our needs, guys. Can you increase this? You can increase it as much as you want. But look, cost is important here too. What happened? It came out to a cost of $237.20. So, that's the cost for a single node. You can add as many of these as you want over time. By the way, the ones we've selected here, or rather, the ones I've chosen here, are the E-type. For example, you can actually choose higher models as well, guys. For instance, here there's a custom option. You can increase the memory to 32 like this. Of course, there are other things here too, guys. Even higher options are available with high CPU. Let's see what's here. There are also ones with 224 CPUs and 224 gigabytes of RAM. For example, there's high memory, things with 96 CPUs and 700 gigabytes of RAM. But costs go up. This one costs $5 per hour. That's $3,700. Is there anything even more, sir? Yes. I mean, there's even more here. It all depends on your needs. Anyway, let's not change these. So, you can choose things according to your high requirements. Alright. Here, we're going to choose E from these. That's the most suitable one for us. Like I said, something like this in the high memory section will more than meet our needs. Here, you can also configure a lot of things like hard drives, SSDs, and the speeds of these SSDs, guys. But there's no need for these. Since we're not going to do anything too over the top, we're just going to test something here and try to understand how the system works. After you do these, just clicking create is enough. Here's what I'm going to do. This cost you see here, guys. As long as your Kubernetes cluster is running, this will be reflected as a cost to you. Otherwise, let's say you come here and click delete, for example, it's available here. You click delete. As soon as you shut it down, your costs drop to 0. So, since it's not running, you don't pay anything. Now, starting this up might take a little time. Guys, I mean, it could take 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes, I don't know. Depending on the current load, this will take some time, guys. Alright. We're waiting for this to load. Basically, we're waiting for its status to be okay. Once it's okay, we'll start setting up its internal structure. So, we'll be talking about what's in there, what's available, how to access it, and how to interact with its contents. Guys,